Welcome back to our channel where we explore dark and frequently enigmatic tales that straddle the border between fact and fantasy. Today we will delve into a story that will chill you to the bone about teenagers, a deadly pact, and the classic film Scream.
What kind of animal could come in and do this to her?
We didn't have a whole lot of evidence. It's scarier when there's no motives.
But let's turn back time and establish the scene for this eerie story before we get into the unnerving facts. This heartbreaking story belongs to a teen girl, Cassie, who received what she never deserved. Cassie Jo Stoddart was born in Idaho on December 21, 1989, just a few days before Christmas, to her mother, Anne. Cassie had two siblings. Her family had a profound affection for one another. They enjoyed each other's presence and had a friendly and open nature. She possessed the ability to establish friendships with virtually anyone effortlessly. Her school friends introduced her as a lady who had ambition and intelligence. And her innocence was never deserved when she got in the cold blood. According to her brother Andrew, Cassie was characterized by her strong-willed nature and served as an exemplary figure. He recalls that they spent a significant amount of time together due to their very close age difference of 1.5 years. They frequented several typical venues and shared mutual interests. In addition to being an artist, she dedicated many hours each week to listening to music and drawing in her room. According to Andrew, their mother continues to display several artworks throughout the house. From her birth chart, it looks like Cassie was a restless person who liked to connect with others and try new things. She always believed in other people and had high hopes and big dreams. It was easy for her, because she cared about others and had empathy. She found power in numbers and liked having someone beside her. There's no doubt that Cassie was a shining light. She had a great life and still had so much to give. This piece will discuss what took away this young woman's future in the darkness of an unfortunate night. How did it happen?
We're sick psychopaths that get pleasure of killing other people.
On September 22, 2006, Cassie was at the house of her Aunt Allison and Uncle Frank Contreras, located on Whispering Cliffs Drive in the northern region of Bannock County. Over the weekend, while the Contreras family was away, Cassie took care of their 3 cats and 2 dogs. Around 6 o'clock that evening, Cassie received a visit from her boyfriend, Matt Beckham. Afterward, her 16-year-old classmates Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk dropped by the residence to hang out. Once Cassie had finished seeing the house, he took the friends through the basement, Adamczyk and Draper, claiming they wanted to watch a movie at their local movie theater instead, exited the room before Kill Bill Part 2 could finish. Matt stayed in the living room to watch the movie with Cassie. Before the lads left, Draper had unlocked the basement door for a purpose that Cassie was ignorant of. Draper and Adamczyk had moved out of the Whispering Cliffs home some time ago. They returned to the location, parked down the street, exited the car, and dressed in dark clothes, white masks, and gloves. While the couple watched TV in the living area, the boys slipped inside the house through the basement entrance. Made a failed attempt to entice Cassie and Beckham downstairs so they could scare them with well-planned loud noises. Instead of going downstairs to check the breaker, the two located the circuit switch and turned off the house's electricity. When the guys noticed Stoddart and Beckham had yet to come downstairs, they turned on a few little lights. After the short power outage, Beckham saw that one of the Contreras dogs was constantly staring down the basement steps and occasionally growling or barking, which made Stoddart anxious. Because Cassie was afraid, Beckham called his mother and asked if he could accompany her home and remain at their house to help her feel better, but she refused, informing Cassie that she would return to the house at Whispering Cliffs the following day. However, she offered Cassie to come along, but Cassie declined Beckham's mother's offer, believing her responsibility was to stay at the house as she had been hired to look after the animals. When Beckham's mother took him up at around 10:30 p.m., Cassie was left alone at home. With a chance to meet up later, Beckham called Adamczyk on his cell phone to ask about his location and that of Draper. Adamczyk was whispering on the phone, and Beckham said he could hardly hear and assumed the group was in a theater. Rather than going to the cinema, Draper and Adamczyk put on masks in black and white and took out the knives they had purchased from a pawn shop many weeks prior.
We found our victim, and sad as it may be, she's our friend. But you know what? We all have to make sacrifices.
Taking advantage of Cassie being alone at home, Adamczyk and Draper turned off the lights once again at the circuit breaker and were taking their time, thinking Casey would come downstairs to switch them back on. But she did not. The boys went up after a while. Whereas Adamczyk carried a hunting knife, Draper had purchased a knife from a pawn shop. Draper swung open a closet door at the top of the stairs, slamming it shut while Cassie sat on the living room couch. Afterward, the boys attacked her with great violence, maybe stabbing her 30 times, 12 of which would have been fatal. After that, the boys left the area. When they returned to their car at 11:30 p.m., they recorded their reactions to their previous acts. The camera told Brian Draper that he stabbed her in the throat and observed her lifeless body. It was gone. "I killed Stoddart, dude."
In the throat, and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie.
Just 2 days after that terrible murder, Cassie's 13-year-old cousin discovered that her body had been slaughtered when she came into the living room. When Cassie's aunt and uncle left on Friday night, leaving her in charge of watching the house for the weekend, they had no idea what horrors awaited them at their home. After the disaster, Cassie's uncle said, "We just never went back in that living room. What if our dream home turned into a nightmare?" Frank said our family bought the house a year before the tragic event. But after the incident, we never entered it again. He also shared with the Idaho State Journal that Cassie was a great girl, an A student who never indulged in alcohol or drugs. She was responsible and accountable.
Concerning Cassie was that she was a good person, she was a good student, and she was just, genuinely kind to everyone.
According to the findings, Cassie was the object of twisted obsessions driven by Brian Draper and Torrey Adamczyk at Pocatello High School. They shot a horrifying video confession during a skipped class period.
Oh, hello, Cassie. Wait, have you seen Tori? He's an hour late. You don't even care, dude. Okay, see ya.
Capturing their evil ambition to mimic the crimes in the Scream movie. Following the unexpected revelation, a list of the intended victims was released, with Cassie at the top, along with an awkward apology to Cassie's family. The investigation exposed the depravity that finally claimed Cassie's life and probed the murky underbelly of their relationship. Before her death, they even admitted to murdering her on video. This video is taken inside the school as the boys skip their 4th-hour session. They utilized this time to compile a list of people they intended to kill, with Cassie taking the top spot. "I apologize to Cassie's family. She had to be the one," said Brian in the recorded video just before Cassie's murder.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Cassie's family, but she had to be the one.
The horrific aspects of the case, according to a local police officer, have lingered with him throughout the years. Bannock County Sheriff Loran Nielsen said, "This would rank, if not the top, close to the top of all the incidents we've had to deal with." During the murder inquiry, authorities discovered that Draper and Adamczyk had taped their intentions to murder Cassie on videotape. The video footage was displayed throughout their trials. But how did the officers find the tape? Stay with us to unveil the twisted things of this case. Arrest and interrogation, examination of legal processes and procedures. Like the crime scene, the response would be a bit of a shock. What type of animal would enter here and assault her in this kind of way?
Well, what kind of animal could come in and do this to her? What kind of person were we going to be finding during the investigation?
What kind of individual would the investigation then reveal? Draper and Adamczyk were arrested on September 27, 2006, and charged with first-degree murder. During the investigation, each teen pointed the finger at the other. Of course, that's the first thing two partners in crime do. They are only partners inside the boundaries of committing the crime. But once things get exposed, no partner remains a crime partner anymore. Throughout the investigation, it was discovered that Brian Draper's history of stammering may have contributed to his emotional problems and made him vulnerable to peer bullying. This developmental element does not excuse his actions, rather it clarifies potential predispositions. However, Cassie's boyfriend, Matt, was the first suspect in the case. In many such cases, The victim's boyfriend comes out to be her murderer, so there is nothing wrong in suspecting him as the killer as soon as the police get their hands on the solid evidence. Matt was not the one killed, so nothing clear came out, but shit turned the tables is still to be discovered. After a few days, detectives looked into Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk after Beckham informed authorities that they were among the last to see Cassie alive. Despite being unable to explain the movie's plot, Draper said that he and Adamczyk had attended the theater. Draper stated in the video, "We're going to go down in history. We will resemble Scream as we get closer."
We're gonna be just like Scream, except real life terms. We're gonna be murderers.
The idea that Draper and Adamczyk had to do a real-life adaptation of the movie Scream begs concerns about their disturbing obsession with violence and their need for notoriety. The fact that they intended to assault Cassie, whom they believed to be defenseless, highlights how well thought out and organized their plot was. The boys had to be released from custody for the night at this point because the police needed to question them further. However, the very next morning, something extraordinary happened. Yes, just when you thought the worst was over, imagine again. When the detectives arrived at the police station that morning, Brian was already there, sobbing beside his parents. It was evident that Brian was ready to talk, so the detective invited him back into the interrogation room. At first, Brian Draper broke. He confessed. But still, he didn't take the blame on himself. He spilled the beans by saying that Adamczyk was the one convincing him into all of this stuff, but Brian's purpose was just to prank Cassie. He told the police that he was surprised when Adamczyk started stabbing Cassie and that it was all meant to be a joke. But that was a lie. On further investigations, both killers spoke up and told the police where they threw their weapons and bags, and that is where the case takes a U-turn. Draper led authorities to Black Rock Canyon, where teenagers disposed of clothing, masks, guns, and cameras. They attempted to set video recordings on fire, but the authorities discovered them and used them to accuse them of homicide. The videotape was the most authentic proof of both criminals' hilarious intentions and confessions as they kept recording every segment of their disastrous plan. There was nothing such a thing as a prank for Cassie. The teens' deadly intentions were firmed many days before the murder. Brian Draper and Tori Adamczyk were trialed as adults, even though they were both under 18 at the time. During Draper's trial, the jury was shown the incriminating video. According to his defense, the recordings are only for the horror film the youngsters intended to make.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Cassie's family, but she had to be the one.
What a lame justification when they are speaking out Cassie's name as their victim.
He has to come forever. She's perfect. She's gonna die.
The investigation also revealed Brain's feelings for Cassie. He claimed to have loved her, and her relationship with Matt always made him feel offended. The jealousy could be one thing leading Brain to take such a deadly action. Draper and Adamczyk were convicted in 2007 for first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder, respectively. Both were sentenced to life without parole for first-degree murder and 30 years to life for conspiracy to commit murder. KPVI reports that the boys were convicted of homicide and conspiracy to commit murder, leading to a life sentence. The Scream killers were apprehended before they couldn't execute more killings from their death list, but justice arrived too late to save Cassie Jo Stoddart. In 2010, the attorneys representing Adamczyk and Draper appealed their clients' convictions to the Idaho Supreme Court separately, seeking either a reduction in their life sentences or a reversal. A vote of 3-2 rejected their first appeals. As a result of incorrect jury instructions, the court overturned Draper's first-degree murder conspiracy conviction, but it upheld his first-degree murder conviction and life term without parole. The verdict is reached because the jury was given the wrong instructions. Because character witness evidence may have altered his sentence, Adamczyk petitioned 6th District Magistrate Judge Mitchell W. Brown for post-conviction relief in 2015. His lawyer, however, declined to call his parents, citing their desires. Following Judge Brown's 2016 denial of Adamczyk's motion, he took his case to court. When the Supreme Court of Idaho denied Adamczyk's request and affirmed the lower court's verdict in December 2017, the case remained intact. After the Idaho Supreme Court denied Adamczyk's appeal in 2018, he took legal action by submitting a federal habeas corpus petition, claiming that the court had relied on an unprecedented premise while rejecting his appeal. In light of Miller and Montgomery's decisions, he requested a new sentence hearing. Nonetheless, federal magistrate Judge Candy W. Dale rejected the petition. In November 2019, the Idaho Supreme Court denied their appeal, affirming the sentence. The Stoddart family filed a civil lawsuit against the Pocatello School District to obtain justice. They claimed that authorities were negligent and ignorant of the horrific killings carried out by Adamczyk and Draper. But in the end, both the civil court and the Idaho Supreme Court rejected their complaint. Adamczyk and Draper are still serving their sentences at the Idaho State Correctional Institution in Ada County, Idaho, despite their appeal being denied in November 2019. Oral arguments will be heard by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on February 7, 2022, presided over by Jay Bybee, Morgan Kristen, and James Selna. On March 24, 2022, Judge Dale's ruling was affirmed. Adamczyk is now contesting it. Through the trial and sentencing, Adamczyk and his family kept proving him innocent. He said he never confessed or said a word that could reveal his intentions of committing a murder, and that he only heard Brain respond to his plans. Whereas, according to him, Brain was the one who stabbed Cassie when Adamczyk didn't even touch her. But is it a smooth justification for defending oneself? What about Cassie's family that is left with evergreen depression and trauma of losing an innocent member of their family at such a young age? Premeditated, senseless killing done just for the pleasure of killing. It was one of the things that scared you the most. The brutality and cold-blooded nature of Cassie's murder left a lasting impact on the local community. It was a stark reminder of the potential for evil in the world. The fact that someone could take another person's life simply for the thrill of it was profoundly unsettling and instilled fear in many people. It is essential to recognize that crime movies can hurt young viewers and contribute to societal influences that promote harmful behavior. Therefore, addressing these influences and actively promoting positive behavior among young individuals is crucial. Please like, share, and subscribe if you find this video interesting. Thank you for watching.